On May 10, 1996, approximately 40 climbers passed a dying man huddled in a limestone cave at 28,000 feet. His name was David Sharp. He was British, 34 years old, and he had dreamed of standing on the roof of the world since he was a boy. Now he sat freezing, arms wrapped around his knees, icicles forming on his eyelashes. Climber after climber stepped around him. Some mistook him for a corpse already. Others knew he was alive and kept walking anyway. They had summits to reach. David Sharp died in that cave. His body remains there to this day. But here's the thing, most people don't realize about Mount Everest. Sharp isn't alone up there, not even close. Over 200 corpses lie scattered across the mountain's upper reaches, frozen in the exact positions they died. Some sitting upright, some curled into fetal balls, some reaching toward a sky that would never save them. Their climbing gear has faded under decades of ultraviolet assault, but their faces remain eerily preserved, locked in expressions of exhaustion, determination, or quiet surrender. The world's highest peak is also the world's highest graveyard. We celebrate Everest as humanity's ultimate conquest. We share summit photos. We applaud record breakers. We treat the mountain like a trophy to be claimed. But those 200 bodies tell a different story. They tell us that for every triumphant climber who descends alive, another may join the silent population above the clouds. And unlike any other graveyard on Earth, these dead don't get buried. They don't decompose. They simply wait, frozen in time, exposed to anyone who follows the same path toward glory. Some have become so familiar, they've earned nicknames. Green Boots, Sleeping Beauty, the German Woman. Climbers use them as trail markers now, waypoints on the path to the top of the world. This is the story of how the mountain that represents humanity's highest achievement became a permanent memorial to our greatest hubris, and why those bodies will likely remain exactly where they fell for centuries to come. Above 26,000 feet, your body begins to die, not metaphorically, not gradually. Cell by cell, minute by minute, the human machine starts shutting down in ways that cannot be reversed. This is the death zone. At sea level, every breath you take delivers oxygen to roughly 1/3 of a liter of air. At the summit of Everest, that same breath gives you barely 1/3 of that. Your lungs strain, your heart races. Your brain, starved of oxygen, starts making decisions that no rational person would make. Climbers have been found wandering without gloves in sub-zero temperatures, convinced they were overheating. Others have sat down to rest, certain they would stand up again in a few minutes. They never did. The medical terms are clinical: high-altitude pulmonary edema, high-altitude cerebral edema, fluid flooding your lungs, your brain swelling inside your skull. But the experience is anything but clinical. It is confusion. It is exhaustion so profound that lifting your foot feels like moving a boulder. It is the slow, creeping realization that something is very wrong, followed by the inability to do anything about it. And when a climber dies up there, everything changes. Below 8,000 meters, bodies decompose, bacteria multiply, insects arrive. Nature reclaims what it created. But in the death zone, none of that happens. The temperature hovers at -40 degrees. There is no moisture. No bacteria can survive. The body freezes solid within hours, often in the exact position of death. Hands still gripping ice axes. Faces still wearing goggles. Mouths still open in final gasps for air that never came. Then the real problem begins. A frozen human body can weigh over 300 pounds. Ice fuses flesh to rock. Limbs lock into rigid angles that cannot be bent. At sea level, 6 strong people could lift that weight without much trouble. At 28,000 feet, 2 climbers can barely manage an 8-kilogram oxygen cylinder between them. The math is brutal and unforgiving. Recovery missions have been attempted. They cost between $30,000 and $80,000 per body. They require teams of 6 to 10 Sherpas, each one risking their own life to retrieve someone already dead. Helicopters cannot help. The air is too thin to generate lift above 21,000 feet. Everything must be done by human hands, human strength, human willpower, and sometimes those missions fail in the worst possible way. At least 2 climbers have died trying to bring bodies down. The mountain simply added them to its collection. This is why Rainbow Valley exists. Below the northeast ridge, at the edge of the death zone, dozens of bodies lie scattered across the slope. Their jackets have faded to muted pastels under decades of sun and wind. Red, blue, yellow, green. A garden of the dead, visible from the climbing route, impossible to ignore. Climbers pass them on the way to the summit. Some pause, most don't. They have their own survival to worry about. May 10th, 1996. The morning began with optimism. Clear skies, light winds, perfect summit weather. By nightfall, 8 people would be dead. 2 commercial expeditions had been climbing in tandem for weeks. Rob Hall, a meticulous New Zealand guide, led adventure consultants. Scott Fisher, an American with a reputation for pushing limits, headed Mountain Madness. Between them, they had guided dozens of clients to the top of the world. Their teams trusted them completely. That trust would be tested in ways none of them could have imagined. The problems started early. Fixed ropes that should have been set the day before were missing. Climbers bunched up at the Hillary Step, a 40-foot wall of rock and ice just below the summit. 33 people waited in line, burning through oxygen, burning through time, burning through the margins that separate survival from catastrophe. The standard turnaround time was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Anyone not at the summit by then was supposed to turn back, no exceptions. The descent is more dangerous than the climb. Exhaustion sets in. Darkness falls. Weather changes. Every minute past turnaround increases the odds of disaster exponentially. Rob Hall reached the summit at 2:30. His client Doug Hansen, who had failed to summit the year before, was still climbing. Hall waited. He had promised Hansen he would get him to the top. By the time Hansen arrived, it was nearly 4 o'clock. The sky was already changing. Scott Fisher summited even later. He had been feeling sick for days, pushing through exhaustion that would have stopped most climbers. His body was shutting down, but summit fever had taken hold. He made it to the top. He would never make it back down. The blizzard hit during the descent. Visibility dropped to 0. Temperatures plunged. Winds screamed across the South Col at hurricane force. Climbers who had been minutes from camp found themselves wandering in circles, unable to see their own feet. Some collapsed where they stood. Others huddled together, sharing body heat, praying for the storm to break. Rob Hall never left Doug Hansen's side. Trapped near the summit, frostbitten and running out of oxygen, he made one final radio call. Base camp patched him through to his wife in New Zealand. She was 7 months pregnant with their first child. He told her the baby's name they had chosen. He told her to sleep well. By morning, he was gone. Scott Fisher died alone on the southeast ridge, roughly 1,000 feet below the summit. Anatoly Bukriv, one of his guides, attempted a rescue but found Fisher beyond saving. His body remained visible on the mountain for years before snow finally buried him. The 1996 disaster made international headlines. John Krakauer's book Into Thin Air became a bestseller. The world suddenly understood what climbers had always known. Everest does not forgive mistakes, and sometimes it does not forgive anything at all. They have names. That is the part most people forget. Behind every frozen body on Everest, there was a person with a family, a hometown, a reason for climbing. But the mountain strips all of that away. It reduces them to landmarks, waypoints, grim reminders that the path ahead is not guaranteed. Green Boots is perhaps the most famous corpse in mountaineering history. For nearly 2 decades, every climber ascending the northeast ridge had to step over his legs to continue toward the summit. He lay curled in a limestone cave at 27,900 feet. His neon green Koflak boots impossible to miss against the gray rock. No one knew his real name for years. He was simply Green Boots, a fixture of the route, as permanent as the mountain itself. His name was almost certainly Tsewang Paljor. He was 28 years old, born in a small village in Ladakh, India. He joined the Indo-Tibetan Border Police because it allowed him to climb, to chase the mountains he had loved since childhood. On May 10th, 1996, the same day Rob Hall and Scott Fisher began their doomed descent on the other side of the mountain, Paljor and 2 teammates pushed for the summit from the north. A blizzard caught them near the top. None of them survived. Paljor crawled into that cave seeking shelter. He never crawled out. Frances Arsentiev earned a different kind of nickname, Sleeping Beauty. She was an American climber, 40 years old. determined to become the first American woman to summit Everest without supplemental oxygen. On May 22, 1998, she succeeded. The summit was hers, but the descent destroyed her. Somewhere above 28,000 feet, Frances became separated from her husband Sergei in the darkness. By morning, she was barely conscious, collapsed on the slope, suffering from severe frostbite and oxygen deprivation. Climbers passed her throughout the day. Some tried to help. None could move her. When Ian Woodall and Kathy O'Dowd found her, she was still alive, staring into their eyes, whispering words that would haunt them for years. "Don't leave me." They had no choice. There was no rescue possible at that altitude. Frances Arsentiev died where she lay. Sergei died the same day, attempting to climb back up with medicine and oxygen to save her. His body was found the following year. For 9 years, climbers passed Frances on the route, her purple jacket vivid against the snow, her face peaceful, almost serene. In 2007, Woodall returned. He wrapped her body in an American flag and moved her out of sight, finally giving her the burial the mountain had denied. David Sharp's death was different. He did not die alone in the wilderness. He died in front of witnesses. Approximately 40 climbers passed him in Green Boots Cave on May 15, 2006, while he was still alive. Most kept walking. When word reached the outside world, the outrage was immediate. Sir Edmund Hillary, the first man to summit Everest, said it plainly. Human life is far more important than just getting to the top of a mountain. Long before green boots, long before Sleeping Beauty, long before the commercialization that turned Everest into a deadly tourist destination, 2 young Englishmen vanished into the clouds and created a mystery that has haunted mountaineering for a century. June 8, 1924. George Mallory and Andrew Irvine set off from their high camp at 26,800 feet, determined to become the first humans to stand on top of the world. Mallory was 37, a veteran climber with 2 previous Everest attempts behind him. When asked why he wanted to climb the mountain, his answer became legend. Because it's there. Irvine was just 22, an Oxford engineering student selected for his skill with the experimental oxygen equipment they carried. Their teammate Noel Odell was climbing below them that afternoon when the clouds briefly parted. He spotted 2 tiny figures high on the northeast ridge, moving toward the summit. Then the mist closed in. Mallory and Irvine were never seen alive again. The question consumed the climbing world for decades. Did they make it? Could they have reached the top 29 years before Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay? The evidence was maddeningly incomplete. An ice axe was found in 1933, lying on a rocky slope below the ridge. It almost certainly belonged to one of them, but it proved nothing about the summit. Then, in 1999, Conrad Anker found the body. Mallory lay face down at 26,760 feet, arms extended as if trying to arrest a fall, his clothing shredded by decades of wind. A rope injury circled his waist, suggesting he had been tied to Irvine when something went catastrophically wrong. His snow goggles were in his pocket, not on his face. He had been climbing in darkness. His bones were broken. His skin was bleached white by the sun. But his features were still recognizable after 75 years in the ice. The expedition searched for a camera. Mallory had borrowed a Kodak Vest pocket model before the summit attempt. If the film survived, it might show whether they reached the top. They never found it. The mystery remained unsolved. What they did find was telling. Mallory had carried a photograph of his wife Ruth, intending to leave it at the summit. The photo was not on his body. Had he placed it there? Or had he simply lost it somewhere on the mountain? For another 25 years, Irvine stayed hidden. Then, in September 2024, a National Geographic team made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the climbing community. On the central Rongbuk Glacier, far below the mountain's north face, they found a cracked leather boot melting out of the ice. Inside was a frozen foot. Embroidered on the sock were 3 letters: A.C. Irvine. Climate change had finally revealed what the mountain had kept secret for a century. Whether that boot brings closure or only deepens the mystery remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: both men remain on Everest. Both men will likely stay there forever. The mountain keeps what it takes, even when it takes legends. In 2024, Nepal launched its most ambitious body recovery effort yet. A team of 12 soldiers and 18 Sherpas spent weeks on the mountain, chipping frozen corpses from ice with axes, sometimes pouring boiling water to loosen winter's grip. They brought down 5 bodies and 1 skeleton. The total cost exceeded $600,000. 200 more remain. Climate change is now doing what rescue teams cannot. As temperatures rise and glaciers retreat, Everest is slowly surrendering its dead. Bodies hidden for decades are emerging from the ice, some recognizable, others reduced to bones and fragments of colorful gear. The mountain that once swallowed its victims whole is now giving them back, one by one. But this creates new problems. Families who had made peace with their loved ones' permanent resting place now face unexpected choices. Climbers ascending in 2024 encountered more corpses than ever before, exposed by thinning snow. The psychological toll is mounting. As Nepal Army Major Aditya Karki put it, seeing a dead body on Everest is gruesome. Clients were distressed by passing the bodies of dead climbers on their climb. Yet still they come. Nearly 500 permits were issued in 2024 alone. The lines at the Hillary Step grow longer each season. The death zone claims new victims every year, 9 more in 2024. Adding to the frozen census above the clouds. Some climbers now request in writing that if they die, their bodies be left on the mountain. They want to remain where their dreams led them. Others' families beg for retrieval, spending fortunes and risking Sherpa lives for closure. And the bodies themselves, Green Boots, Sleeping Beauty, the unnamed hundreds, keep their silent vigil, waiting for climbers to pass, offering the same unspoken warning they've given for decades. The summit is not the finish line. The descent is. Mount Everest doesn't care about your dreams. It only keeps what it takes. But this is just one mountain. Next time, we explore something even more terrifying. A disaster that struck without warning and left an entire community frozen in time. Subscribe now. You won't want to miss it.